You're listening to the Smart Women in Business podcast, episode number 50. Hello, you're listening to the Smart Women in Business podcast. My name is Jane Mackay, and on this show, we talk to smart women in business all over the world about starting, building, and creating the life and business of your dreams while having incredibly honest, in-depth, and rich conversations with amazing women in business who will inspire you to become a smart woman in business. Hello, and welcome to the Smart Women in Business vlog and podcast. I'm your host, Jane Mackay from Jane Mackay Communications, marketing consultant and coach who works with people across the world to build the business of their dreams. Today, I am very excited to be speaking to Shannon Dunn from The Thrive Factor. Shannon has a singular purpose to bring effortless success on every level. How she delivers her unique method of coaching is diverse, inventive, and consistently refined in line with each individual client she serves. Everything is underpinned by a core belief she holds that every woman's birthright is to thrive. And that, when she thrives, she ripples an effect out into the world, which I just love. Yes. Where others also get to thrive sustainably. It's a concept Shannon coined collective thriving. Shannon genuinely helps ambitious women leverage their thrive factor and turn their wisdom into profit without hustle and overwhelm. Yay, Shannon.
Yes. It's so good to be here with you finally.
Finally, we've been Instagram friends for a while.
Yes. Connected on Facebook, love each other's work.
Now here we are finally.
Yeah.
Face to face, as close as we can get at the moment.
Exactly. It's very cool.
It's so cool. I love that COVID has forced us to embrace this whole medium and just go, you know what, I can't get to retreats, can't see people face to face. I'm just going to reach out. And I love that there's a whole lot of messaging going on Instagram and little supports and little digital high fives. I love it.
Yeah, it's definitely, like, I think it was there, but it's, as you said, like, because we can't do in-person stuff in the ways that we used to, it's changed the way that we connect, and for the better. Yeah,
I love it. And because I'm rural, I could never go to anything. It takes me 4 hours, 5 hours to get to the airport. So for me, the traveling things has never been on, but I'm loving all this virtual action.
I was going to say, I can't imagine that, but you know, I'm in Western Australia, so to the rest of the country, that's like being rural. So
yeah, that's like being, in a small country town, although I've heard Perth is exceptionally beautiful. But tell me about your business journey. It's been quite an interesting one, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so I'm like 15 plus years into being a business owner. Started out in the, way back time before things like Facebook was like it was, before Instagram was born. Although I love telling some of the like younger kind of entrepreneurs and women in business I connect with, and they're like, what did you do? I'm like, we went out and we networked and we met people in person and we had websites and we did telephone calls.
Really awesome websites.
It's too funny, right? So funny, because you had to have all those things back then, because that was all there was. And, I started my business when I was still working in corporate. I knew I was moving into my business, but just the whole gentle moving across and looking at the finances and trying to do it the sensible kind of way. But I always knew that I was going to be in business. There was no doubt in my mind. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I always knew I'd be a business owner. And because I grew up with business owners, both my grandmothers were business owners. On one side of the family, my dad's side, both my nana and pop were in the business, but there's no doubt in my mind who was actually in charge, right? And on my mum's side, my grandmother was a true entrepreneur in terms of having a finger in multiple pies. She always had a new business idea. She was always investing in this and doing this and hoping this would work. So that real, I had the small business and then I had the real entrepreneur energy displayed to me when I was little. So I didn't think that you couldn't have a business, because I'd seen it in real life. And as a child, you don't ask whether it's successful or not. You just saw what they did, and that was a career path. So so it was just fabulous to get to a certain point in my life when I'd done some more study and was so tired of the corporate kind of experience and feeling really limited in that my creativity was, well, this is your job description and that's it. Don't step outside the boundaries, and don't dare to think boldly, which is exactly who I am.
Yeah.
I think why a lot of us end up in businesses, right, Jane? Because we just those kinds of former types of employment that we've had, it's just not allowed us to be who we are. And there's people that work with that and not necessarily happy, but accept that that's the way that they're going to earn an income and do what they want to do in the world. And then there's those of us like you and I, like, nope, I'm going to do it completely different. I'm going to go out there and do something else. Yeah. So yeah, but that's like the beginning all those years ago. And I've done multiple things since, in terms of, there's been a coaching element all the way through, but I've also got professional qualifications in counseling and art therapy, lots of work with, human behavior and archetypal psychology. So that comes into all of the business work that I do. It's just, I can't deny it.
You can't fight it.
No, don't want to either.
No, it's just our personalities.
Yeah.
So how has your business evolved? Because your business has changed in the time I've been seeing you online.
Yeah.
How's it evolved? And what were the signs for you that it was time to change? Because sometimes we get dragged into change, and sometimes change happens and we go, oh, I didn't see that happening.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think for me, a lot of it's been, it definitely has been a blend of a conscious choice at some points, and another where you just, you sort of come to this realization that, things are different now. And it just happened, when you're on your own evolution. And when you invest a lot of time and effort in a rewarding way, like not effort in a draining way, because we're not about the hustle, right?
No.
But effort in a rewarding way into personal development as well as your business development, you will find, or I certainly have, and I see this in my clients and the community of women that I love to surround myself with, the evolution just happens. And often it's only when you stop and you do that very, very valuable pause and reflect on what has happened in the last 6 months or the last 12 months or the last 5 years, that you're like, oh my goodness, look at all of this, the change, but it very much is an evolution. So there's been some, subconscious points where I have wanted to change things. Again, back in those early days, we didn't have the power of social media and connection like this. You could Skype people. You could really effortlessly record. Podcasts weren't really a thing. And if they were, those early days, it was an audio recording that was a lot of clunky technology and really poor quality. And now here we are on Zoom recording, with great audio and the video component. So, there's been technology. I love technology, and I love seeing, being an early adapter, kind of thing, like, let's go. What's this new thing that people are doing? How can we make things easier? As underpins everything that I do. And so, in those early days, it was working with men and women in business. Now I only work with women, and predominantly I have worked with women in business, but in my private client environment up until probably 12 months ago, I did work still with some male clients, the right kind of men that worked with the very creative, visionary way that I like to coach. But from a marketing perspective, always been about women. As you shared in introducing me, I do truly believe that every woman's birthright is to thrive. I'm not ignorant to the fact that that's a huge challenge for a lot of women in parts of the world, but I think the more that those of us that have more privilege and have more, for me, I know it's education and other means that step up and try and do what we can to support that kind of a dynamic, then more women can come to understand that and choose for themselves their own version of thriving in context of where they are and where they live. And it does ripple out. It can't help. It's not, and I don't focus on women to the exclusion of men. It's about every human being. But, you find your tribe, right? You find your people that won't make sense to you. And for me, the work that I do and what I've created has very much been about women. And it's not women's empowerment. It's more about leadership. So, yeah. But in terms of, other key pivotal moments and changes and shifts, I think when you first followed me, I had a different name for a start. And so, the breakdown of my marriage 2.5 years ago, which was it was a positive thing. But, spending up to that point, 13 years building a brand with another name was a real challenging thing for me to go, well, from an identity perspective, well, who am I now? Didn't want to keep that name, but how, I'd published multiple books and done all sorts of things. There's other interviews all over the world with that old name. So it was a lot of evolution for me, more so in the last 2 years, about really coming back to who am I and what is the why? We hear that all the time, don't we, in business? Go back to your why. So, but what is the why? But what is the truth of me in the context of what I want to create? And my vision goes way beyond my physical lifetime. So it really required coming back to centering and grounding into who I am and what I stand for.
And it's incredible how you have this energy, and you have your energy. We talk about this energetic body and your identity people feel trapped by that to a degree. And we can break free of it, but we need to make that choice.
Yes, it is a conscious choice, 100%. And the fear that people have is often because of the unknown that's on the other side. So there's the like psychology kind of me coming in through here.
Which is valid.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And the way that we end up then staying in the space of whatever's not working for us doesn't make us feel good, doesn't make us feel energized, doesn't make us feel happy, but we know it. Yeah. So it's that
safe.
real interesting, it is safe, even though we can feel unsafe within it. So there's all this duality going on all the time. And this is why I love the way that I've brought in so much psychology, and particularly archetypal psychology, into my work. I mean, it's really what I'm here for, but in a business context, because I work with a business owner and we might be looking at, like I know your love of all things marketing, marketing things, but the person needs to be considered in that as well. Yeah, it's not just about learning the strategy and the tactic and the how-to. If there's other things from a personal perspective going on, then all of that stuff is not going to stick.
That's why I bang on about alignment all the time, because I can't come from it, not that I'm necessarily an extrovert, but I can't come on my extrovert days and say to my clients as an introvert, well, I expect you to show up. And they're like, we can't. Yeah. So you need to work through that in yourself and go, okay, well, how can I do it in a way that feels safe for me?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. And I love it when I get to work with a client, either one-on-one or a mastermind or in one of my group programs. And at some point, she has this awareness that the personal transformation that she's experienced has been the greatest value, because it's with that then the confidence, the clarity, the decision-making, the energy, the whatever she desires to bring in to create positive effect in her business just happens.
And that's when it feels aligned. It's like, it's magical. And I get all like, and when I see my clients do that too, I'm like, I'm so proud.
I know. So good. It's so worth the being the encourager, being the, if I look at the Thrive Factor framework, which we haven't touched on yet, but that's the archetypal psychology framework that underpins everything in my business. One of my 4 archetypes is the inspirer believer. I reckon you've got this one too. The cheerleader archetype. She shows up in a lot of women that work in the spaces that we do, where it's a sort of a blend or morphed version of like coaching and consulting and supporting in different ways. And my inspirer believer, when I see someone take even the tiniest little bit of action and they get some sign of, a learning or their own inspiration gets activated or something happens and you can't wait to share it. I'm like, yes, this is why I'm here. This is why I exist.
I'm existing for my purpose. Yeah, so to actually take us through that, because a lot of, we can talk about that, but a lot of people don't understand that the archetypes that underpin our lives, really.
Yeah, so archetype is a word that is more commonly understood in language, or people at least recognize it. When I first started talking about archetypes, which was before I even started my business, I'm one of those nerdy people that like to read about Carl Jung and his work in archetypes.
Yeah. I have got a sociology and psychology degree.
Yeah.
Spent a bit of time doing that.
Yeah. But, way back when we used that word and people go, what is that?
And we had actual books then, and we had to go to the library and photocopy stuff.
That's right. The same era.
No more than 10% of the book.
Yes. Bringing back memories. But archetypes, if we go back to the root word of archetype, it goes back to like ancient times of, the Greek philosophers and Plato, and particularly I think has got a reference to use of the word that would have been underpinned what became archetype. And arche in tupos means first impression or original impression. So that's really what an archetype is. It's about our impression, or the way, as I share it when I teach it, the way we show up in the world. But there's different aspects of archetypes, because there is what I refer to in the Thrive Factor framework that I've created. There's the strengths that we show up with, but there is also the potential challenges. And in traditional archetypal psychology, it was referred to as light and shadow.
Yes.
I wanted to change the language, not to discredit the original, way that it was taught.
Don't be Plato, man.
Let's not knock Plato and Jung and all the others that have gone since then. But for me, I wanted to make it language that was relatable to the women because I work mostly with women in business and leadership. And also I had seen such a bad rap for that word shadow.
Yes.
It gets such a like, it's the bad stuff about me, I need to deny it, or it's horrible, or those are those, the ugly, terrible
I just
parts.
have to pretend it doesn't exist.
Exactly. It's like, no. Definitely not. It's that integration and understanding of our shadow, or in the Thrive Factor framework, our potential challenges, and working with our light or our strengths, that we become this whole embodied, aligned version of ourselves. And we activate this space of what I call being in your effortless success zone. Things just get easier. You feel great. It's very in line. Being in your effortless success zone is very much like the psychological state of being in flow. Yeah. And flow, as I say often when I talk about it, it's not just about yoga. Like
no.
Actual psychological state.
Is it alpha flow? I can't remember now.
Yes.
The brainwave.
Yes. Yeah. And so when we can be in that space, when we can come to that, there's a lot of self-acceptance, self-celebration. There's but that's what I do, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I've had so many conversations with women over so many years now, because I coined the Thrive Factor as a framework, had a different name way back when, but it's over a decade I've been using this in my work. But the conversations around so there's nothing wrong with me, or I don't need fixing, or I'm not broken. No, never. Like,
you're perfect.
Yes, let's have a look at some of the reasons why you may have thought that, but let's not focus on them. Let's understand that you will have potential challenges, and that word potential is key, because we all have a combination of archetypes. There are 12 in the framework. And what we see in general is that, I don't like to use the average or normal kind of words, but women will have a combination of anywhere between 3 and 6 archetypes. Yeah. I'm seeing more so as I profile these days and do the Thrive Factor experiences, probably more 4 or 5. 6 is definitely more frequent than it was when I first did this a decade ago. I don't think we've become more complex. I think we've become more self-aware. So these parts of ourselves, is like understanding them and celebrating them and going, you know what, that thing that I thought was terrible about me, that's a potential challenge that belongs to this archetype, but I've lived it as an actualized challenge, is actually one of my greatest superpowers. It's one of the reasons people come to me as a businesswoman. And being able to transform that personal relationship we have with parts of ourselves is so powerful. And it's just, I love it. It's just addicted to my own work.
Yay.
So useful.
I think we really are we're in the age of, and personal development had such a wanky rap back in the 90s.
Didn't it?
Oh my gosh. And now I love a quantum physics sort of woo.
Yeah, love it.
But then my husband's got what is it? The Stephen Covey. Anyway.
Oh yeah,
old school. I haven't read it. But there's an awareness now, an acceptance that this energetic body and the way that we treat our energies actually now been proven by science. So all of us who's been talking about this and on this personal journey and being treated like we're total hippies, it's actually now you can turn around and go, actually, it's been scientifically proven. So let's have a conversation about physics. And people are like, whoa, that's weird. But I think that it's becoming more useful and more used as a tool in business. It is. Because people have an understanding that we keep talking about it and it keeps coming up. And we're seeing these commonalities like the archetypes that we can use in business to, like I did a course years ago dealing with difficult people and we all did our Myers-Briggs. Like that's the sort of one way to understand archetypes. And then there's a whole nother way of understanding archetypes, which I love. Is it the manifested generator and all of those ones?
Design. Yeah.
Oh, that's human designs. I enjoy those too. And then they're becoming more and more useful as business tools because they help us understand how humans interact. Because we often come to things with an assumption that everyone thinks like us.
We do. And it's so fascinating when I'm doing what we call it's the whole process of connecting a woman with her archetypes is myself and I've got now Thrive Factor coaches. So I teach a coaching certification in Thrive Factor.
Congrats.
And we talk about it as, talk about it as introducing a woman to herself, because that's what it is, right? But when we do that, it's like the whole, but doesn't everybody say things like that? Or isn't that how I thought everyone felt like that? Nope. That is unique to that particular archetype. and it may be expressed in this way because you also have this archetype and this archetype. And it's like, oh my goodness, but I just thought, no, you are unique and you are original, even if you have the same archetypes as someone, because I'm not going into too much detail, but then you're looking and you'd understand from a psychology perspective, looking at behavioral and environmental influences and things like that. You know, it's all very, very
and genetic expression, but
yes, yeah. There's so many different iterations of it. That, you know, this whole coming to this self-awareness is such a gift, and I often say this, that it is, in my experience, and not just because I teach it, but it came from a lived experience. It's the greatest thing that you can gift to yourself is this self-awareness and being on an exploration of who am I, not because you think there's something missing, but because you are excited about understanding and living your expressed potential. And yet there are so many things, so many ways to do it.
And when you live your expressed potential, you can give so much more. Yeah. You can have such a greater impact on so many more people for the positive.
So much. Well, because you let go of all of that, the stuff that got in the way. You know, you would have seen me talk a lot about how I believe that it's so important for women to be able to come to that place of their own confidence so they can make better decisions about what they're going to invest in, who they're going to work with. I do believe that getting help is an incredible thing to do. But I don't believe that you should blindly follow somebody and that you should put all of your, you know, every last cent you have plus all your credit into buying something that you are sure is going to be that quick fix, because there's no quick fixes. But if you invest in yourself and you can come to that place of that great confidence in your decision making, you can discern what's right for me and what I can say no to. Yeah. So that you can take the best of what's out there rather than, oh, but I have to do this course because it's going to change everything in my business, my life, or whatever your drive is. Yeah. And then when you know from the true, you know, gift of psychology, which is what the Thrive Factor is founded on, that it's reliable information. It's, you know, and it's not, I've had over the years a few people say to me, but isn't that like putting a label on someone? I was like, oh no, this is just starting their connection to who they are. I don't know all the stuff about all 12 archetypes. I created the damn things, right? I don't know. I'm learning all the time. Every time I have a conversation with a woman about one or more of her archetypes, I'm potentially learning more about one or more of them or the interaction between them. And I'm constantly, thank goodness I've got one of my four as the mentor teacher. I constantly am documenting and, you know, and researching and learning. And, you know, even when I got the book handy, right? Because you've got it. It's also
hold it up so we can see it.
This is January 2019. This came out, and that's why I say, you know, it's a detailed 96,000+ words in that book, but it is a snapshot of what I knew and understood and felt was the best and most useful information to share at that time. That's 2.5 years ago, more than that now. So there's more coming all the time, which to me is exciting because there's always a potential to learn more. There's always the new understandings, new insights, new learnings, and that to me is you living in your Thrive Factor, because you're opening up to, well, this is great, rather than being blocked or stuck or trapped or defined by this is all I am. No, this is just the beginning. We don't even know where it's going to go.
We're limitless.
Yeah, we are. Yeah,
and we forget that because we contain ourselves in our little boxes. Wow, we could talk about this all day. So much fun. Okay, so how do you manage your life as an entrepreneur? Because this is a question I always ask, because we all have weird and wonderful lives.
Such a good question. And, you know, I'm not someone who subscribes to having like a dedicated, ritualized morning practice and those kinds of things. But I did have a realization about 12 months ago that the way I had structured my business and life was not working for me. And I had some time away, September of last year, and it was one of those brief moments where I could get on a plane and travel within my own state. I got away. I know it's novel, right? Oh. It was. I did feel like I was showing off. 6 days up north, where in beautiful Broome, at the end of our winter from last year. It was winter. Magic. I know.
Winter in WA.
Yeah, we get winter in WA, just not like you do, but we do. But it was just, for someone who's travelled extensively and has travelled a lot with my business too. A lot of us have had things that we said that at the beginning that we can no longer do. But that was a real shake up for me to be able to, to come to that realization that there's things that I had really used to nourish my freedom, I didn't know when they were coming back. So how can I reinvent this, right? How can I reinvent this? And I know that, again, there's two of my other two archetypes that I haven't mentioned yet, the visionary creator and the liberator engineer, round out my four. Those two need space and they need to have a sense of freedom. And I wasn't feeling that. I was getting up and working at hours that suited my clients, and yet that's not what I taught. It just had become one of those habits of, we're just falling into, wait a second, this isn't working. I wasn't exercising like I want to. I don't do that just to be fit and healthy. I do it because getting oxygen in my brain actually helps me for the rest of my thinking day, things like that. So I rearranged the whole structure of my day, and I now don't start any client work until after 9:30 my time, no matter where my clients are in the world. Yeah, I pick and choose the times and days when I'm going to work. I have set days that are client days. I have days that are creative, free sort of thinking days or times in my diary. I do exercise in the morning, not super early, but first thing. I make sure I have breakfast. I might journal, and I do journal most days, but I journal when I feel right to journal, not get up and do it first thing in the morning. Sometimes it's morning, sometimes middle of the day, sometimes before bed. I tap into a whole resource of tools that work for me, but I'm not someone who was ever going to. In fact, my liberator engineer archetype, which is the rebel archetype, you tell me I need to do something a certain way, I'm going to do it the complete opposite or not do it at all. Yeah. So learning about that about myself, I'm like, okay, that's okay. I don't feel free when I feel like I'm stuck doing something in a regimented, confined, this is the way you have to do it or you're not going to get the result.
So, I definitely have an inner rebel.
Yeah.
At the weekend, I went, I'm going to do nothing today. I'm going to sit in bed and read my book. Yeah. So I cleaned both bathrooms, vacuumed, and mopped the floors. So
you rebelled against what your desire was. I know, it's too funny.
My brain.
Yeah. So I my days, I certainly have some structure in my days because I've got client calls for my one-on-one clients. I have masterminds. I have programs. Tend to be running a program, 1 or 2 programs at any point in time. Even changing that up in the last, year has been pivotal for me to be more in line with what works for me from an archetypal perspective. And the thing from a business perspective, one of the greatest learnings that you can have when you understand yourself, whether it's through the perspective of the archetypes or something else, is that you will attract people who are similar to you. So there is 2 to 3 of my archetypes that regularly show up in my clients. So they are looking for the same kind of thing that I'm creating in my day. And I am very much a devotee to practicing what I teach, not what I preach, but what I teach. So I want to be a lived example for them about how I've how I've consciously and intentionally created a lifestyle for myself in line with who I am, so that they can find their own permission if that's what they need to do the same. So it's days are fluid, but there's fluidity and freedom within the structure.
I love it because we're not always feeling it.
No, goodness no.
And it's weird because sometimes we go into being self-employed or being entrepreneurs and create a job process. I have to be there at 9, I have to finish at 5, which worked for me in the early days because I needed to get into the habit of disciplining myself, not to procrastinate.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, okay, cool. I work these hours, I see clients on these days. Yeah. And you need to allow yourself to do that. And like, I'm really good in the mornings, not so great in the afternoons. And you learn those patterns in yourself of when your energy peaks and flows, and embrace that.
Honoring that. And it's just because you used to work in a certain way doesn't mean you have to keep doing that. In
every area of your life.
Exactly. We're allowed to change. In fact, it's important to be in that space of being reflective and going, is this really working for me? If not, what's one thing I can do to make a change? It doesn't have to be like, throw it all out and start again. What's one little thing I can do to see if that makes it flow better or makes me feel better or energizes me more, or whatever it is that you desire. If I said, like, look at my 4 archetypes, my inspirer believer needs opportunities to be inspired by the external world and also by my internal world. My mentor teacher needs to understand how wise she is and to use her wisdom to make decisions, not going in learning and doing more courses, actually tune into what I already know. Yeah. My liberator engineer, she's all about freedom, but she has a very analytical way of creating freedom, but she needs a space to be able to see what's possible. And the visionary creator, highly creative in an artistic way, but the visionary aspect of my visionary creator archetype is, it has this gift for being able to see what's possible well into the future, and then a gift for then being able to bring the lessons, the gifts, the wisdom from that back into the present moment so it can be actualized. But if I'm constantly working, constantly coaching, constantly learning, constantly, I've got 2 manuscripts on the go at the moment, right? But constantly doing, that doesn't happen. I can't see. I don't trust my knowing. I don't, trust my wisdom. I don't feel inspired. I don't feel free. And that's when it's the opposite of thriving. And we've created a version of being trapped or whatever words make sense for people.
Trapped and frightened.
Yes.
And you do get to points in your business where you go, what am I doing?
Yeah, totally.
And you've created it. But you've just got to work out how to uncreate it. And that can be an energetic thing or a time thing or a task thing or attracting client thing, which is an energetic thing in itself.
Yeah, definitely. But the effortlessness in being able to do that, because it doesn't feel effortless at the time. And I often say effortlessness or being effortless is not effort free. It's less hard. But being able to create a sense of things being easier when you've got the self-awareness that you can come back to rely and go, okay, what do I need? Like I just shared, what I need for me by my archetypes. If I honor that every day in whatever way it needs to be on that particular day or on that week or that month or year, then I know I'm on the right track. And not only am I supporting myself to thrive, I am being the better version or best version of myself for all the people that I get to work with, whether they're paid clients or someone I connect with in another way.
I love it. So what tools do you use? Because everyone has a different tech stack and you're quite technical.
Yes. Yeah, no, I am. But it's about, for me, it's always been about using technology to create ease.
Yeah.
So not having loads of different things. So favorite things, like if I think, what do I use every day? I use Zoom every day in some capacity, whether it's for client connections or like doing interviews or recording videos for training kinds of things. I use Zoom every single day. I love my phone for ease of, the good old smartphone, for ease of social media and that kind of stuff. From within the context of my business, Google Drive, shifting away. I had Dropbox for years, but definitely shifting to everything's Google Drive at the moment.
I live on Google Suite.
And Asana, key way to communicate with my business manager. We keep each other accountable on that kind of thing. It's also a place for me to do big brain dumps. I've done what I call my ingenious strategic vision for next year. I do that around September, October every year. That's in Asana. And then we come back to the non-tech tools, journals. I've got notebooks and journals, color coded. Like I have different covers. I like to use unlined journals because I don't necessarily just write. Sometimes I will draw in there. Sometimes I will do all sorts of different things. So I like to use unlined journals. I use more like an art journal, very much nourishing my visionary creator archetype too. Always got colored pens with me, post-it notes and tabs and that kind of thing to digitize them in a real live pen. And then other things is apps on my phone. So when it comes to things like, if I have had a busy day and my brain isn't switching off like I want it to go for sleep, I will jump on Insight Timer and I will find a yoga nidra. I've got my favorites all saved in playlists now, but I'll go and I'll listen to something or I'll, that kind of stuff. So there's not really that much else from a tech perspective. I just like to keep it really simple.
Some people love multiple tools.
Yeah.
And I just, I'm like you. I might go, is this just another thing I'm going to have to learn that's going to make it feel more complicated?
Yeah, definitely. From, websites and stuff, like I am a WordPress lover, so just stick to that for my websites. For my training platform, so where we deliver everything from the Thrive Factor Coach certification, the graduate licensee programs on there, and then all of the programs that I do, all the masterclass recordings, everything, MemberVault.
Oh, my favourite.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I was a former Thinkific user, never loved it.
No, me either. The interface was clunky.
Came across MemberVault about 18 months ago and love it. Love telling my clients about it. Love seeing them decide they want to embrace it. So, that in terms of what do I log into most in the days, it's definitely, I'm on a Mac, but I have, what I was going to say. No, I always can't think off the top of my head. But yeah, I don't use, I said use Google Drive, but I've still got Office. That's what I was going to say, Office Suite, Mac. Yeah, again, having been a non-Mac user for the majority of my professional life in when I was an employee, because I didn't use Macs and that kind of stuff.
No one could afford Macs back in the day.
Oh goodness, no. And and then MemberVault's probably the other platform I spend most. MemberVault, Asana. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yes.
One of the things that I always ask on this program, that made me sound really old on this pod, is one of the things that affects every entrepreneur I know is imposter syndrome. So what are your methods to deal with this, overcome this? How do you deal with the bad days in business?
In honoring what I've been talking about, practicing what I teach, I come back to my archetypes. So one of the ways to ensure that I have less of a negative impact when things don't go right, or imposter kind of stuff comes up, or I have a moment of, self-doubt or crisis or wobbles, all those kinds of things, is like a counteract it before it happens by having an open conversation relationship with my archetypes. I look at them, they're parts of me, but I look at them like they're a group of girlfriends. Yeah, they're not always going to get on. Someone's often going to feel left out, like this kind of like dynamic that plays out in human relationships. It happens within us from an archetypal perspective. So I do, when I'm doing my daily journaling or reflection or a visualization that I'm just making up for myself, I would check in with them. I say, okay, who's got something to share with me today, or who needs something today? What are we doing? Like, come on, who's in charge today, kind of thing. But what I am very mindful of is that one of my archetypes, which is the inspire, believer, the cheerleader archetype that I mentioned at the beginning, is significantly common amongst women in business. I'm not surprised about that at all. Definitely women in coaching, consulting, and that kind of work, but women in business in general. My thoughts behind that from a theory perspective is that it's an archetype that needs to be able to get excited. She needs to be able to bring her full energy, because she's an intensely energetically driven archetype, to whatever she's doing. Regular employment doesn't allow that. Yeah. No. So you get, and I used to get told off for the level of excitement I had.
You're too much.
Yeah, exactly. That happened in my personal relationships as well. But the inspire, believer archetype, because she's so energetically driven, she can be the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. I call it being in the modulus moments, where it's just like, I don't know why I'm bothering. This is, the hopeless, helpless, pointless. This is ridiculous. So she's the one for me of my four that can, if I'm going to have that wobble stuff, she's always going to show up. Might be another one of my archetypes also there, but she's always there. So being aware of energy, doing things to nourish my energy. So again, rearranging my schedule last year, and as I said, exercising in the morning, so I got it done and put oxygen in my brain as well as it was in my body and out of my head. The journaling thing, the reflection thing, doing lots of body work. So I love my float tank every month. I do a reflexology session. I go to acupuncture, because those things work for me. So I invest in those. Having good conversations with smart ladies. Yeah. All the things that nourish me on different levels means that when she goes to one of those, the dips, the filling in the cave, like, what's the point? For throw it all away.
Just burn it all down.
Exactly. Like yesterday, you could have had the greatest day ever, but today that could happen. It can show up often out of nowhere. But if I go there, I don't stay there very long. And I can almost get to a point where it's not about mocking it, but laughing at it in some ways. I'm like, oh, here we are again. This is interesting. I wonder what motivated me to go here.
What are we learning today?
Not feed too much into it, right? Not feed it too much. Yeah. It's often related to which, So I've truly believe and teach that if you can find the thing or things, because some of us need more than one thing, that make you feel better in your day and do more of those, then those things like imposter syndrome, it's not that they're going to go away, but they're not going to have a significant long-term negative impact on you like they could have. Yeah. And every archetype has their own, energy center. Definitely. I don't teach them like human design does, for example, but they get taught a lot in my programs around, well, how do you use your strengths? How do you, bring the awareness and the learning from your potential challenges if they're actualized, and what do you do with them? The mediator diplomat is another common archetype I see in women in business, She's the archetype of fairness, where everything has to be fair, right, just and equal for herself and everyone in the world. She's also the perfectionist archetype, who has incredibly high standards and can be paralyzing for women who have that archetype, irrelevant of what the other ones are. She gets a really bad rap. She gets horrendous names, which I will not repeat. A lot of them are very inappropriate for any conversation. But she, this is the names that women that have this archetype give her, because they feel like she's just getting in their way, particularly when they've got an inspired believer like, I get really excited. And then she's like, should we really be doing that? Is that the best use of our time and money? That kind of an energy,
boring.
And you can understand that. You could go, like, I had a conversation with a client of mine in one of my masterminds recently, who was worried about a new offer that she was putting out in the world wasn't good enough from a perspective of her mediator diplomat. Was like, is this really good, a fair exchange of value for the price you've put on it? Yeah. And the mediator diplomat was going round and round in circles trying to justify it all. And I said to her, with the greatest of intent and direction, I wanted it to really get to it. I was like, know that because you have the mediator diplomat archetype, and your gift for creating and delivering quality, and your desire that everything is of incredible value, means that you cannot deliver something that's crap.
It doesn't exist in your reality.
And she's like, so I can just let that go. Yes, you can. Yeah. Because your obsession on it is it right? Has it got enough stuff in it? Have I done this? Does it look this way? That is stopping you from putting it out into the world. So you're not getting to live your truth of who you are. You're not getting to thrive, and you're not giving the clients that are waiting for what you're about to share the opportunity to connect with it either. So let her go, nurture her, nourish her, remind her that we only know how to deliver something that is of incredible value and quality. So we can forget, obsessing about whether it's good enough. It is. It doesn't know how not to be, and changed everything for her in a heartbeat, which was so good. And that's one of those inspired believer goes, I need to get the pom-poms out. Like, yay.
I love it. So I think I know the answer to this question, but how do you maintain your sense of community while working alone?
While working alone. I love to spend time on social media, but with boundaries, right? It's not, I'm not an all day, every day thing, but I like to, I check Instagram a couple of times a day, in the morning, in the evening kind of thing, when I feel like I'm ready to do it. But equally, I also have times where I don't go onto social media. I do have a Facebook group, which that was one of my reinventions, let a bigger group go because it wasn't aligned and didn't feel good and felt heavy and felt very attached to the other name version of me. And I wanted to reinvent, not to change what I was doing, but to bring a different energy and a more committed energy. So I do have and it's quite a small group. Yeah, I don't show up.
Because your old group was huge.
It was a few thousand, but I just let that go. People are like, what are you doing? It's like, it's full of people that are not right, and the ones, when I announced that I was changing, that I was creating a new group, it was, to me, it felt a fresh start in the right kind of way to go, let's just start again, rather than go, do you want to be here or not? And if you don't want to be here, leave. And
we all just followed you.
And you did. But what it felt so good was that the right people, the women that wanted to still be connected, followed, and letting go of the how many they were, because it wasn't about how many, it was about the right people. I don't care how many are in that group. It's going a little bit. I don't need to put a lot of effort into growing it, because I just trust that all, the right kind of thing will come. Other things in terms of when I am doing programs that I've invested in for myself, working with my own coaches and mentors, I make sure I show up. I am here to have a global experience, and I love to work with others that are in different parts of the world so that we can connect with women that have different viewpoints and experiences based on where they live and their cultural experience, as well as their learned experience and lived experience. So that has always nourished me, which has felt challenging at times, being in one of the most remote capital cities in the world. And hence why my love of travel for so much of my life. I like getting out and immersing myself actually in the world to connect. So, and I show up when I feel energized and I feel, like I've got something of importance to share in those spaces. Email, sometimes I email, sometimes I don't. I have an email list, but I'm not obsessed with emailing on a regular basis.
No.
No.
I had a client say to me the other day, every time an email comes back from you, I go, yes. Yes. She's doing it. Okay. Yes. Don't expect another one for a while.
No, I know, it's funny, isn't it? And as I said, this is again going back to all the things that we've been taught, and I know you've been in a business a long time too. You know, some of the what I would refer to now as outdated, limiting paradigms around business. Things are shifting for the better, as we've said. But, you know, the obsession with doing things that certain way and having to build a massive
email 11 o'clock on a Thursday.
Yeah, because that,
it's what we did in 2009.
Exactly, or earlier. But yeah. So just again, honoring what works for you and just going, you know what, this doesn't feel right. I'm not going to do this. I had someone recently tell me I must get on TikTok. Not really, not interested. I'd much rather put my energy into platforms I know and actually love, like Instagram and Facebook, if I'm talking about social media. I regularly get told by someone else in my community that I should spend more time on LinkedIn. I don't like it. Yeah. So no, it doesn't work for me. Yeah.
I call LinkedIn the middle-aged white man of socials. And no offense to all the middle-aged white men in my life that I love, but
no, but it is. Dull. Makes me think of, again, the stale, dull.
But they could change the interface. It'd be much more fun.
They won't. And it has changed. It has certainly become more social, because again, it's not a social media platform, it's a networking platform. People don't understand that, but you know, that the whole, you know, spammy kind of, you know, I'm sure you'll need my thing touch or buy my thing. It happens on all the social media platforms and all of them, but
it's about building relationships.
Yes, definitely.
Actual real ones, not pull you into you into your funnel relationships.
Yeah, totally. But when we can do more in-person stuff, I've hosted many years of business retreats. I love attending retreats to nourish myself, as well as, you know, participate in them and deliver them. So the travel has been a huge one for me. You know, where I'm going and where I can, who's there that I know, or who do I know online but I've not met them in person yet, and I could meet them in person. So that kind of thing. But equally protecting my own space and my own energy, because I am more introverted than I am extroverted.
Me too. Yeah. Despite what you see on social media, people, we're both introverts mainly.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. But, you know, things like, you know, when I have hosted retreats in the past, I did manage to do one in WA this year, a short little weekend one, which was so good because it had been 18 months since the last one I'd done in Bali. But, you know, I always make sure I have a few days afterwards, which is like, no one's allowed to come and stay with me. There's no sharing of space.
Do not speak to me.
If I want to sleep, I'll sleep. If I want to create, I'll create. If I want to do nothing, I'll do nothing. Yeah.
You got to protect your energy.
Yeah, you do. And it's a reset for self before you come back home to whatever your other environment was.
Yeah.
You know, the worst thing you can do to yourself, if you're either an attendee or you're hosting something like that, is to throw yourself right back into life just as it was before you left, because you were changed.
You are changed. So what's your why? What keeps you motivated? I love this question.
Goodness me, there are so many moving parts to this, but that belief that we've shared, that I have, that underpins everything, in that I truly believe that every woman's birthright is to thrive. That keeps me motivated. But then on the day-to-day kind of energy, it's remembering the challenges that my grandmother's had in business. My father, like Dad, was a small business owner a couple of times and then went back to Korea. And I know he felt like he'd failed us as a family because his businesses weren't that great. And he used to say to me, if only I could get help. So surprised I ended up doing what I was doing. I didn't realize it. But
Let me help you.
When you're 10 or 11 and your dad's like, if only there was someone you could go to ask for what to do about, marketing and that kind of thing. But, now I'm not a mum. I didn't end up having any children, but I've got 3 nieces and a nephew. And particularly for the girls, looking at the difference that they have compared to what we had as children.
Yeah.
There is so much more opportunity, but there's also so many other things that can derail them from being able to, live a thriving life. So, looking at that kind of thing. And, I've been talking to the older 2 who are 16 and just 15 this week, the second one, about their archetypes, or about the archetypes. They both do know their archetypes now, but about them since they were little. And the 15-year-old, I used to say to me when she was about 3, like, Anisha, tell me about the ladies and how you help other ladies with that, knowing their ladies. That was the kind of language that Mia used, which was so cute. And, now looking at her and being able to introduce her a few months ago to her archetypes, and seeing what her potential is, but also helping her to understand why she hates school because of the confines of what it brings. She's got two particularly archetypes that are very visionary. She's got the visionary creator, and she's also got the pioneer seeker, which is a disruptor. So she spent her whole life being told she doesn't fit in because she doesn't. No. She doesn't think like other kids. She doesn't. So she's like, so this is just who I am. It's like, yes, yeah, the difference that can create. So that kind of stuff fuels me. And then every single moment that I see a woman out there backing herself, deciding that she's worth it, that fuels me, no matter whether it's a client or someone in my community or someone I've never met, but I see it. My Inspire Believer gets very inspired. It's like, yes, this is why we're doing this. Yes, the more that we can do this, the more that rippling effect of that collective thriving goes out into the world. And as I said, the more women that can, as mothers, as aunts, as grandmothers, as, whatever context we have influence over children, the more that we can show them that it's worth investing in ourselves. Not doesn't mean have to be dollars, just time to do that personal development, that self-reflection, to say, this part's about myself I don't understand or I don't like, but I want to work with that. Then that's just sending such a positive message out into the world. Yeah.
I'm so excited about it. I have 2 nieces and a daughter and a crazy son, but I'm so excited about the next generation and their growing awareness of this sort of self-empowerment, self-awareness.
So much shame. So I take my older nieces, so that they're in year 11 and 9, to school every Monday morning. They only live up the road from me. I love it because it means I get to see them once a week, which I don't necessarily now that, friends are far more important than their jobs and school. But on Monday morning, it's not a typical conversation on the way to school, but we ended up talking about, through my eldest niece, Ruby, her instigation, emotional intelligence. I would never have had I wouldn't have even had someone to have a conversation about that kind of stuff with. But that's not what we would have ever entertained. Ruby's done a year of psychology at school in year 11, and then suddenly realised how much her auntie was actually an asset to that, and such nerds out on psychology at every level. But, being able to have those kinds of conversations with them and to get them to stop, pause and think about what's really of value in the way that they build relationships with people. Yeah, it's so like that excites me so much.
It's amazing.
That might not be the typical conversation in other people's cars on the way to school, but
my daughter would go there.
Yeah,
totally
which
would.
Is great.
Yeah.
Again, the world that exists for us all in the future, I think, can only be an up-leveled version of what we've lived. Yeah, a better one, definitely. Yeah. There's more consciousness. There's more. This is not okay. And I'm going to do something about it, not just complain about it. The world needed to change, clearly. That's why we had something thrown at us that every single person in the world has been affected by. Yeah. What we do from this point forward that makes a difference.
It's going to define it. Oh, this has been a very powerful conversation. What are your top tips then for all the smart women in business across the world?
I would be dishonoring myself and what I practice if I didn't say self-awareness is the first thing. So whatever platform, framework, teacher, something that you can go to gain more sense of who you are from a perspective of, I want to build my confidence. I want to be able to back myself. I am worth something and I want to make a difference in the world. I don't care whether it's the Thrive Factor or something else, as long as you're doing something I think is of value. So that's a big one for sure. And then honoring who you are. So I'm a big one about celebration. A lot of people talk about gratitude, and I am a big believer in gratitude and the power of that, but more importantly, celebration. So one of my manuscripts I'm working on at the moment, which has been a long time coming to fruition, but hopefully will be out early next year, is a book purely around celebration for women, and focusing on the archetypes. So we've got the 12 archetypes or the cards here, but every month across a 12-month period will be inspired by an archetype. So it would be open to everyone. You wouldn't have to know your archetypes to do that. So you could tap into the energy of that archetype and use that. But celebration is so key. And there's so much awkwardness, or, so many women are in this space of, but I can't celebrate because I haven't fill the blank in yet. Or, but it didn't get me the result that I wanted, or someone did it bigger and better. Like, what? No, let that go. Very much that if we can celebrate the small things that happen day to day, the big celebrations will just happen by themselves. So celebration is key. And then, allowing yourself to be inspired and nourished in whatever way works for you. Yeah, the self-awareness underpins that, because if you don't know who you are, it's a bit hard to know how to nourish yourself.
One follows the other.
They do.
Amazing. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you today, Shannon. How can listeners find out more about your work?
Okay, so 2 things, or actually no, yes, I will give you 2 different websites. So for everything to do with the Thrive Factor itself as a sort of a standalone piece, everything from, doing your Thrive Factor profiling, which we call a Thrive Factor experience, through to the certification program and other information about that, and connecting in with the Thrive Factor coaches, is thethrivefactor.com. And then my business website is thrivefactorco.com. But if you want to know all the latest things that I've got going on, it's thrivefactorco.com/ and it's Shannon-Dunn-links. And that'll give you the current,
Put it all in the show notes down there.
Got the right link there, but that'll give you whatever I'm currently doing, from business coaching to retreats to the certification to, how to connect with me on socials. So
and Shannon's good fun on Insta.
Oh, thank you. I know Jan and I often have lots of fun banter back and forth when we see each other's content, which is cool. That's what you want. Like, that's just, you can make your day when someone, just comments on something or asks you something, and it's like, yeah, cool. Yeah. Someone read that.
Awesome. I'm having an impact. No, we're usually just being silly, but anyway, it's still laughter. Laughter has impact. It
is. Yeah, laughter definitely is very, very important. Yeah, we take each other, but we take ourselves too seriously a lot of the time. So being able to laugh and being able to, again, look at those shadow parts of yourself, celebrate them, and go, you know what? They're actually my superpowers.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Amazing to speak to you today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, darling.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Women in Business podcast. If you'd like access to the show notes, please visit my website, janemackaycommunications.com.au/blog. If you've enjoyed this episode and would like to hear more, please don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, keep on being a smart woman in business.